Hello. My name is Tom Bronak and I created this video to share my perspective on business continuity management. I hope you enjoy the video and share it with friends and associates. Business continuity management includes all the recovery management disciplines shown below. You begin your construction of business continuity plans by performing a risk assessment of your organization to define all the critical information that needs to be recovered should a disaster event occur. A business impact analysis is then performed to identify all of your facilities, their staff and location, the clients they service, the suppliers they use, and the criticality of their organization. From this information, recovery time objectives are constructed. Based on the recovery time objectives and the ability to recover critical data, a recovery point objective is established. The recovery point represents the greatest outage tolerance that the location or service can suffer without loss of reputation, damage to the brand, or client and regulatory penalties in the form of broken agreements and lawsuits. The ever-changing technology landscape is constantly introducing new products and services that can aid in the protection and recovery of critical data and operations. Every effort should be made to ensure the inclusion of these new technologies when creating recovery plans. Finally, your personnel are your most critical resource, and they should be provided with awareness training so that they will be able to recognize a disaster event and report the occurrence to the person responsible for declaring a disaster event. Why do you need business continuity management? Business continuity management is designed to preserve the company should an outage occur that could interrupt critical services and damage the reputation and company brand. Recovery plans must be created that identify specific failures that can be circumvented through a secondary path or recovery operation. To accomplish this feat, your company must eliminate any single point of failure that could impede recovery operations. Recovery planning must include adherence to regulatory requirements and ensure that the business can continue operations through a catastrophic event. Ensure your recovery operations is functioning properly through various types of testing, from paper-driven tabletop exercises to full recovery drills with all hands on board. It is essential to integrate recovery operations into the everyday functions performed by personnel to ensure that recovery documentation and plans are maintained in a current and accurate manner. The business planning methodology and types of plans included in business continuity management are shown here. Remember to include security salvage and restoration services for location recoveries because once the first responders leave, it is your responsibility to protect the site and ensure property is not stolen, including sensitive information and equipment. Information Security Organizational Stack. This slide provides so much information, I don't know where to start. But it is well worth the time needed to understand how your organization operates and why business continuity management is so important. I must thank Ben Hackman for making this information public. His work in developing this graphic is greatly appreciated. The 8 areas that impact business continuity planning are shown on the right and provide a short but precise explanation of why these areas are so critical to recovery planning. Personnel from each of these groups have an impact on recovery planning and should be included in planning sessions and status reporting. Compliance includes both domestic and international laws and regulations, covering the countries where your company has business interests. Employees must adhere to regulatory and departmental policies that are designed to identify risks that must be controlled to avoid business interruptions and impediments. Business technology and identity access management will control access to critical applications and services that can best protect your environment and systems. Your infrastructure contains all of the resources used to provide client and business services, so it is imperative that you establish privacy and control over sensitive data. Company personnel are allowed access to resources and data through identity access management rights defined in role-based access controls associated with their job title. For this reason, security management should be included in recovery planning. For the same token, cyber incident reporting and problem reporting should have input to the recovery planning process, since they are the frontline personnel handling anomalies that could become a disaster event. Your network should be arranged in concentric rings that protect data and company records. The outer ring contains access controls for local users, remote users, directory services, and the account vault, containing access rules and privileges for local and remote users. The middle ring contains all of the authorized services and work centers used to construct and maintain your network environment. The inner ring contains the locations connected within your environment, including cloud service providers, remote users, the corporate network, production data centers, smart devices, and external suppliers. From this overview, you can easily see why business continuity management is so important and why it is so complex. 10-step process to establish the BCM practice. Building and implementing a business continuity management organization follows a well-adopted 10-step process, including project initiation and management, where you seek management approval and long-term funding. One of the outcomes of this step is a statement of work and executive management commitment to the overarching goals and objectives of implementing business continuity management within the organization. Risk evaluation and controls improvement is the first active step and is responsible for identifying gaps, exceptions, and obstacles that would impede your company's ability to protect against, and recover from, disaster events. Controls are established to assist in implementing service continuity procedures. A business impact analysis is performed for locations and departments to identify the facility, its staff, the critical services provided by the site, and what is the tolerance for an outage associated with the site. From this information, services are classified by criticality and their recovery time objectives defined. From the recovery time objective, a recovery point objective is defined that would allow for the recovery and synchronization of data files to restart operations at the point of failure. Recovery plan strategies and the use of new technologies to support recovery operations is decided upon next. If you have a large organization, it is recommended that you use automated tools to assist in the building, testing, tracking, exercising, and maintaining of recovery plans. Emergency response and operations restoration are major concerns related to recovering from natural and man-made disaster events like hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, or sabotage and terrorism. Personnel safety and the protection of property are included in emergency management, and the use of first responded may be included in an emergency event. Certainly, security, salvage, and restoration must be considered along with the purchase of insurance to assist in the finance of restoration and recovery. Designing and implementing recovery plans is the next step in your process and includes many types of tests to ensure your recovery plans will work when most needed. Testing can evolve from a paper, tabletop test, where individuals speak about their assigned responsibilities, to a full-blown recovery exercise with everybody participating. This process is like the military exercising and performing war games. It makes going to combat easier to cope with. Awareness and training is required for everybody to know about recovery planning and how to notify someone of a potential recovery problem. Maintaining recovery plans means that you should integrate recovery planning into the everyday functions performed by your staff, including development, testing, quality assurance, production acceptance, production processing, support, maintenance, and change management to ensure that correct version and release management practices are followed to keep all relayed information tied together and current. Public relations is a critical aspect of recovery management, because it is the face that your company shows to the public. Make sure that a single voice speaks for the company under the direction of executive management. Never lie and always answer questions as honestly and directly as possible. Lying or acting in an unclear manner will project a bad image of the firm and tarnish your company reputation and brand. Coordinating with public authorities is essential to ensure that the first responders are aware of your location and spend time inspecting your sites to ensure they follow OSHA standards. Should you not include first responders, and they find out you are in violation when a disaster event occurs, it will result in a delayed response and potential fines. It will impact your reputation. Beyond speaking to the public, it is important to speak with your neighbors and community as well. If your office is in a high-rise building, then other tenants can cause damage to you, or you to them, should a disaster event occur. The same reasoning follows if your company is in a business park. Being a good neighbor and being aware of potential problems is an important element of recovery planning. Enterprise resilience and corporate compliance, phases and goals. Enterprise resilience utilizes all of the business continuity disciplines to protect an organization from service interruptions, while corporate compliance ensures that your company complies with the laws and regulations of the countries where you perform business. There are 7 phases to implementing enterprise resilience and corporate certification that are listed here with the phase goal explained. Management is engaged in the first phase to agree on the direction best suited to achieve the goals and objectives of this project. A risk assessment is then performed to uncover any gaps, exceptions, and obstacles that would impede your ability to achieve the goals and objectives already agreed on by management. The business impact analysis phase is responsible for reviewing business location and departments to define their critical assets and services provided. From this information, a recovery time objective and recovery point objective is defined, along with critical supplies, vendors, and suppliers. Should a site become inoperable due to a fire or natural disaster, then recovery plans must be implemented to provide directions to the site's management and staff that will provide safeguards and allow the business to recover operations at an alternate site, or by combining operations within current sites. Once recovery plans have been created, training and awareness is delivered and many tests are performed to ensure that recovery plans operate as designed and that personnel know what actions they must take to protect themselves and the company. Included in any recovery operations are community relations and coordination with first responders, so that you are sure your company is in compliance and that the first responders are aware of your efforts. Knowing who to contact in your community when a disaster event occurs is important, so that you can provide them with an instant status alert that would support their ability to take reactive actions to prepare their staff and seek protection. Think about an active shooter or a water main break that could affect lower floors in a building. Being a good neighbor is always the right thing to do. Integrated risk management. Risk management is a cornerstone of recovery management and the starting point for all recovery planning activities. The upper left-hand box displays the various recovery management disciplines that should be included in analyzing your environment. These risk analysis studies will uncover any weaknesses in the form of gaps, exceptions, and obstacles to a protected environment. Controls are then put in place to resolve the weaknesses, and risks are entered into a risk register. The entries within the risk register must have plans of action and milestones developed to resolve the weaknesses and presented to the auditor when they perform their analysis of your compliance. If acceptable to the auditor, the action plans will be approved and you can still receive a letter of attestation to present to the regulators. If not, then you must revamp your corrective plan to meet their approval. Vendor management is becoming a most critical risk evaluation, because you must first validate your primary suppliers, and then the secondary suppliers that support your primary supplier. Some products are not allowed within the United States and the companies that create these products are banned, for example ZTE and some 5G suppliers. Some companies are implementing a blockchain approach to supplier management called democratized ownership of organization via blockchain. This process assigns a blockchain contract to product acquisitions and routes the contract to concerned parties for their approval, or denial. By following this path, your company will have an audit trail of supplier verifications that can be presented to the auditors. Recently, the government has introduced a cybersecurity maturity model capabilities approach to acquisitions that will verify that your supply chain adheres to required security standards. This CMMC process must be in place by the end of 2021 and many companies are just now performing the analysis needed to identify corrective actions needed to adhere to the new regulation. There are presently about 300,000 companies that must adhere to this standard to continue doing business with the U.S. government. It is recommended that automated tools be utilized to support vendor and supply chain management because it is becoming more difficult to manage with the new laws and regulations that are being applied. Recovery time objectives and techniques. This graphic illustrates the time intervals related to a disaster event. It may take some time to recognize the disaster event, and that period is to the left of the disaster event occurrence shown in this graphic. The bottom line represents production processing. The second line from the bottom illustrates what is happening prior to and during a disaster event. The third line up illustrates how high availability recovery is achieved, and the top line illustrates how continuous availability is performed. Below the bottom line are the timing issues that must be calculated when performing a business impact analysis, and they include recovery point objective, disaster event, recovery time objective, and recovery time analysis. Other recovery terms are defined in the lower right-hand corner of the graphic. When a disaster event occurs, you must initiate a data forward recovery from the defined recovery point objective. The shorter the recovery point objective, the faster a recovery can be accomplished. For continuous availability, recovery is picked up instantly at the recovery site because the programs and data are in sync with the primary site. Of course, this requires multiple data centers to accomplish this feat. The use of Kubernetes will address this requirement and should be considered. Highly available recovery is performed by performing a forward data recovery from incremental backup logs that reduce the amount of time needed to recover your site. Again, the shorter the incremental backup, the faster the recovery. Recovering from the recovery point objective is the longest recovery path, but it is within the tolerance level of the client. Achieving the gold standard of continuous availability is everybody's goal and is required for those services that simply cannot go down, like demand deposits in banking, or your website. It may require your having to take steps to achieve, but each step will improve your recovery profile. I am attempting to keep my presentation to 20 minutes or less, but this subject requires more time to fully review. For that reason, I will be creating follow-on videos to describe more about business continuity management and how to develop and test recovery plans. Should you have any questions, comments, or recommendations for improvement, I would like to hear them. Please contact me at one of the email addresses displayed. I will also accept phone calls, should you be interested in obtaining my services as a consultant or a trainer. Thank you for viewing this video. I hope it provided you with information that you can use in your workday life. If you liked the video, I would appreciate your sharing it with your friends and business associates. Thank you again, and goodbye until our next class.